Thank you all for joining us this afternoon, this morning, whatever time it is in your part of the world. We are really excited to share with you another one of our Harmonize Success webinars with our special guest, Bruno from the English department at the University of Michigan. Thank you for joining us from Maize and Blue Nation. Um, introduce myself. I'm Michael Hakkarainen, the Harmonize Success Coach. That's an interesting title for an interesting job. No, I am not a singing coach, but what I do is support Harmonize users who are new to the tool, helping them with onboarding and getting them set up using Harmonize in their online learning community. That means hosting webinars like this one and webinars like Getting Started with Harmonize, and then meeting with instructors and sharing the success that they're having with using Harmonize in their courses and also with their students. For the last 10 years, I myself have been teaching online and providing professional development about educational technology in classrooms, blended learning environments, and even online programs. So that's enough about us. We'd like to learn a little bit about you. So we have a quick poll that's going to pop up on your screen right now. It has two questions. First, we're interested in what is your role at your learning institution? And second, we'd like to know what are the challenges that you're facing, the biggest challenge that you're facing using discussions in your online learning environment. So while you're completing the poll, now just a reminder, there are two questions. Be sure to scroll down and click submit when you're finished. But let me tell you a little bit about us, 42 Lines, the creators of Harmonize. We've been building custom software for over a decade. The company was created because the founders saw a need for intuitive and easy to use instructional technology that meets the needs of students. Out of this grew Harmonize, an LTI or app for learning management systems. Harmonize provides a modern discussion board that improves student engagement and retention. And since we have some attendees who maybe don't use Harmonize or haven't seen it yet, I'm going to give you a first glimpse of it right here. This is not your typical discussion board, right? Doesn't look like what you're used to seeing in maybe your native LMS discussion, but a little bit different. You'll see here that there are two sections to it. At the top in the dark gray is the topic area where the instructor posts instructions or maybe some media to share. And then in the area underneath, you'll see student posts that appear in the form of cards. So what we're doing here is taking what our students are already familiar with from social media concepts and trying to apply it in an academic setting so they have the same type of interactivity, communicating with media, being able to tag one another, seeing what they've missed since the last time, and this will lead to some more engagement. So let's take a little bit of a deeper dive look into this. If you look at those cards at the bottom, this like Pinterest style or Instagram style card posting, you don't see the scrolling through text lines that you might be used to. And instead, you have something a little bit more inviting to click on, like either the student's profile picture or an image or even a video if they decide to share it that way. Now, what's happened here is the instructions, that dark gray section has been rolled up. That allows us to then focus on each student. Each one of these cards is a post by a student, and students can post more than once. But if we click on a card, we can then turn it over and see the discussion that ensues with comments and replies. Now, if you look over there on the right, you'll see a picture of an iPad. That's there because Harmonize is a mobile-first designed application. So this means that when you open Canvas or Blackboard or Desire to Learn or any of those LMSs on your portable device through their app, you will have Harmonize load up and behave exactly the same as it does on maybe your computer, MacBook, Windows computer, or even a Chromebook, and how it looks in a browser. So it is mobile first, it is easy to use, it is media friendly. And it was designed that way. No need for another username or password or anything like that. It works directly inside your LMS. And we do work with all the major LMSs. So you're going to hear from our guest today who uses Canvas and how Harmonize works on there. But you can also install the Harmonize LTI onto Brightspace by Desire to Learn, Moodle, and even Blackboard. In fact, it works on both Blackboard platforms, both Learn and Ultra. And this is a tool that is not another LMS or another thing to learn, but just a new way of doing what you're already doing that works great in your online learning community. Let's talk about engagement for just a second. We want to make sure that everybody here is engaged in the webinar. So we are interested in your questions and your answers. At the bottom of the screen, you will see a little Q&A button down there. You will click on that to open a dialog screen and enter any questions that you might have. Heather, our co-host, will stop us and we'll answer those questions as they come up, but we will also have plenty of time at the end to do Q&A. Before we move on, just a real quick review of what we have so far in the audience that'll help us sort of fine tune our presentation for you. We have about half of our audience are instructors or professors. We also have about 20% of the group are instructional designers. And then we have 30% of the group are department chairs. And then we have a few members of academic affairs here. Biggest challenges with online discussions. There's a tie right now for lack of quality responses and it just changed. And last minute participation with those 11th hour submissions. We're definitely going to hit on that when we talk about milestones or multiple due dates. Also encouraging participation, got almost 50%. Then we're looking at lack of student participation, which is a similar answer, as well as limited in the type of media tools for active online discussions. If you're feeling that way, Harmonize is an excellent solution for that. And also the challenge of grading. So this is great. We're going to hit all of those things. And to make sure that we do that, I'm going to mute myself and turn the mic over to our special guest, R. Bruno from the University of Michigan. Thank you so much for being here. And I will let you introduce yourself and your background. Take it away.
Hello, I'm R. Bruno from the University of Michigan. I'm currently a lecturer at the University of Michigan, where I also received my MFA. I'm a series editor at Noemi Press, and I've also taught for the Telluride Association Summer Program. Today, I'm going to talk about a few general areas of focus when it comes to making social connections using Harmonize. I'll focus on 3 areas: assignments, discussions, and peer review. These are areas in which Harmonize has helped me build a classroom community while teaching remotely. This semester, I've made Harmonize the hub of my course, and that was done in an attempt to create a vibrant virtual learning environment that allows everyone the opportunity to feel seen and heard. We're going to start with that focus on general assignments. And I have an image here of one of the assignments from a recent course. I've used online discussions as a supplemental tool during face-to-face semesters, but like many instructors, they have become an essential element of my teaching since we've moved so many of our sessions to remote environments. In an assignment like this, I work to combine elements of those supplemental discussions into an assignment that also simulates and perhaps expands on the conversations we might have had in the classroom. For example, with Harmonize, I can ask students to post a visualization that brings new and exciting insights into a conversation. This creates opportunities for students who might otherwise be silent during a face-to-face conversation on those topics, and it creates social connections as students are able to share and discuss their work in a manner that mirrors their conversations on social media platforms. While those supplemental online discussions in the past often felt like busy work to students and perhaps discouraged engagement, these conversations can come to life if students are motivated. From an instructor standpoint, the requirements noted at the top of the page also work to immediately let me know if I need to reach out to the class or to certain students to keep the conversation going. This helps me feel connected to students, especially students who I notice might be struggling to join the conversation. And those requirements you might notice at the top of this Harmonize topic are the milestones. So I have a milestone to make 1 post by February 12th, and then students have to make 5 comments by February 15th. I also have them making 1 reaction by the 15th as well. So you'll see that this had 51 posts out of 55 students and 266 comments in reply. And really, by having this focus on making that initial post and then the window to make their comments, it works to push against those last minute submissions.
So let me ask you a question real quick. When you put these milestones in there, the students see the dates up there at the top. I just want to point out that they're also notified by Harmonize email like 24 hours before these milestones. But I'm wondering, do you also use rubrics or do you let the milestones kind of speak for themselves? How do you set that up for grading?
I let the milestones speak for themselves. Recently, I've tried the auto grading feature for Harmonize to auto grade some of the submissions to make sure that people are on track for hitting these milestones. But I also, Canvas has a feature where I can automatically send a Canvas message to people who haven't been engaged. So I'll
Okay.
see, oh, 12 people haven't commented. I'll send a message to all of them at once through a group message from Canvas to say, hey, make sure you remember we have a milestone. Let me know if you have any questions before you make your post. And that gets me really gives me the opportunity to engage with those students one-on-one if they're having problem with the topic for the week.
Excellent. So you just answered my second question, which was going to be, it's really easy to see which students are engaged because you see their activity in their posts, but how do you determine who isn't engaged? And so it sounds like you're leveraging both the data you get from Harmonize as well as what you get from Canvas because you're creating it as an assignment, correct?
Because I'm creating these as an assignment, I can use that Canvas gradebook and see who has not yet met, especially that first milestone,
Mhm.
send them a message and ask if I can provide any additional information or help. Especially during these remote times, it can be a great way to let the students know that you care, to let them know that you're there, and to let them know that they have someone to reach out to.
That's fantastic. Okay, thanks.
I know many of us have experimented with different LTIs, with different ways to create collaborative discussions. So I'm going to talk a little bit about shared notes through Harmonize. For the last few years, I've been experimenting with different collaborative note-taking tools. And this semester, I'm really working to simplify my workflow and the experience for the students. One of the ways I did this was through shared note-taking via Harmonize. In the example here, we can see that students create a document with their notes that they share via Harmonize. They can then collaborate in that shared document, but they also come back together on Harmonize through those milestones to connect and discuss their thoughts and opinions on our readings. One big selling point of this to me is that students' notes live in their own file. They're sharing it via Harmonize, but they have that access 100% of the time. With the tools I've utilized in the past, students would have to find our course page again, try to access their notes. Here, while Harmonize is the discussion hub, they still have easy access to their own work and their own thoughts moving forward because of the way that I am allowing them to share the link to their notes via Harmonize. While many of my assignments are currently based in Harmonize, like the ones that we just looked at, Harmonize adds even more to the class when you use ungraded discussions in chat. So much of our teaching involves those conversations before and after the bell that we struggle to emulate in online settings. And we aren't just missing those, we're also missing those conversations in the classroom, in the hallways, in which students work together to think through the materials discussed in a class session. I've been using these ungraded elements of Harmonize to offer students and myself the opportunity for those types of conversations and connections. As the students in a first year writing class are often freshmen, many of them haven't had the opportunity to experience those types of on campus conversations. My goal is to create that environment virtually as much as possible. One of my ungraded areas is this community lounge, a place that I hope gives students the freedom for those conversations. This is where students can post any thoughts or comments that relate to class materials and share them and get feedback from their peers. So we have here an example of one that I posted early in the semester, asking what tools people were using during these remote semesters to help shape their workflow. And we had numerous students respond. I shared one that I was using, and it gave us right at the start of the semester a practice point for informal conversations that will hopefully continue throughout the course.
So this brings up a topic of interest from my own personal experience. When you just mentioned freshmen, and you're working in first year writing courses. So a lot of your students are brand new to the university. They're coming from all over the country, different school districts. And as a result, they might be coming from different learning management systems. I mean, we talk about a language barrier sometimes when we're working with students from around the world, but we kind of have a language barrier when it comes to the technology. Have you noticed that some students come in like ready to go with Canvas, whereas others may have used something like Google Classroom or a different LMS, and they're struggling to like make the switch when they get to your course?
I've noticed that more than ever this semester, more than ever this year, because I think a lot of people started virtual learning in their final semester of high school. They
Hmm.
started to learn one LMS and then they had to switch over to Canvas. I've always had to teach a little bit of what Canvas does and how to do it, but I haven't had that extra element of noting how it differs from something like Google Classroom in the past, where people
Hmm.
are now accustomed to an LMS that they're having to deviate from. So it's something I see a lot, and it's something that I'm still trying to work my way around. How much instruction on Canvas do I include in the classroom, and how much do I direct them to external materials? And I
Hmm.
feel like one of the great things about Harmonize is it has that button that we can see up here, the light bulb, that does a lot of that work for students. So whereas with Canvas, they might have to struggle to figure out their way to find feedback. With
Hmm.
Harmonize, if they have a question, going to that light bulb can often give them immediate sort of feedback from Harmonize directly.
That's good to know. Thanks. So we haven't talked about that, but yeah, that light bulb up there has built-in video tutorials that will pop up automatically for students. So that was the question I was going to ask next, which is how much direct instruction of using Harmonize as a tech tool have you had to do? And it sounds like not much. So thanks. I'll let you keep going.
I haven't had to do much, but I did do some introduction assignments at the beginning of the semester that included recording a video in your post.
Mm.
It included recording audio in your post as a way both for us to all get to know each other, but also for them to get to know the tool that they were going to be using throughout the semester.
That's a great idea. So if you introduce a new tech tool and you give them like a low stakes or ungraded assignment, something fun just to get comfortable with the buttons, then they're up and running. That's awesome.
Yeah, and I had so many people who couldn't figure out how to upload a video. And then I was like, not only can you upload a video, you can record one directly on Harmonize. So it gave me a chance to sort of showcase some of the tools in a way that there weren't really any repercussions if they did something wrong.
Fantastic. Now we do have one question in the Q&A board, and I'm going to read it to you because I know you're going to hit on it in just a second. So I want to let Thomas know his answer is about to get answered. His question is about to get answered. But have you ever asked students to do peer review activities and Harmonize? And if so, how did it go? So I'll let you carry on because I know you're going to get to that in just a minute, right?
I'm going to get to that shortly.
Cool. Thanks.
So the next thing I'm going to talk about is course recordings in this ungraded Harmonized Discussions area. And one of the great things about Harmonize is that ability to post and record videos that we were just talking about. And given the impact that remote learning has on attendance and participation, many of us are posting videos of our Zoom meetings for students to view at a later date. Last semester, I uploaded these videos to the course page directly. I tried to make quizzes out of them, but a student could really only send me feedback via email. This semester, I've started to upload all of my videos to Harmonize. This includes both videos of our class sessions and short videos that I record focused on frequently asked questions. For example, here we can see 2 class sessions from the 26th and the 31st, but between those, we have a short video I recorded on library skills based on some of the questions I was receiving on Harmonize and via email. Students who missed the sessions can use that Harmonized thread to ask follow-up questions. This can help me to engage with the students, but it also has the potential to create connections and conversations between students, even if they weren't in that synchronous Zoom session. I mentioned questions in those threads, but I also have a dedicated area of Harmonize, a topic just for general course questions. Harmonize has given me the chance to change how students converse with me. Now more than ever, I think we're all noticing how many questions asked during office hours could be answered with a quick email. This is especially the case with first-year students who might not be familiar with what an office hour session entails. We all still want those students to come to office hours, but we'd like to spend that time working on questions that are critical to the success of the student. So I created this general course questions topic on Harmonize so that students could ask those questions that they might otherwise wait for an office hour session to ask. It's my hope that this also generates a sense of community. Students will know that they are not alone in their questions, and I can spot areas of confusion to address during those synchronous sessions. So here we have students asking questions about Zotero. We have students asking questions about time zone issues on Canvas. I took this is only one of the questions I received about Zotero. I responded to each student, but I also then posted a video both here and in my videos area saying, here's some answers for all of these questions on Zotero. where I recorded my screen and showed them how to go about adding sources to Zotero, how to go about exporting sources from Zotero.
Zotero, I have to tell you, in the last academic year that we've been collaborating and working, I've learned about more tech tools than I did in my entire ed tech career. I think you've just been using so many. What does Zotero do exactly, and how do you use it in your course?
Yeah, so it's a citation management program. So,
Okay.
for example, if we go, this image here is of the library's website for the
Hmm.
University of Michigan. If you have Zotero installed on your computer and you select one of these um, articles or books from the University of Michigan website, you can just click the Zotero icon in your web browser's toolbar, and it will save this reading to Zotero. So it will save an image of the PDF, it will save the PDF, it will save the citation information and the abstract.
Gotcha. Okay, so in this case, you had a general course questions topic, and then each student post down there might be a different topic based on what they're asking. But Samuel just shared in the Q&A that he uses forums for student involvement in the topics or programs, forums formulated from topics from the syllabus. So just out of curiosity, are you making one forum for general course questions, or do you have multiple forums throughout the course?
So I have this for general course questions throughout the course, one topic that is really rooted in questions that you think everyone might have about very basic course elements.
Hmm.
I do have some other question categories, topics in my ungraded Harmonize area that might be like evaluating sources questions. And that is if we're really focused deeply on something on the syllabus, ask questions about that here. This area is very general in nature.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
No problem. I'm also using the Harmonize Chat as a way to supplement office hours as well. So during the first semester of online learning, I used a third-party chat program for some of my office hour sessions. I felt like it was a real way to save bandwidth because it helped some students who didn't want to have the camera on. It helped me sometimes to have a second to think about what I wanted to type for my answer instead of having that automatic response via Zoom. But that third-party chat program created confusion at times. Students would have to leave the course page to begin the chat, navigate to the chat program. But with Harmonize, that's not been a concern. I've used this chat as a supplement for office hours, and it's directly in Harmonize, directly on our Canvas page. Students can come here if I direct them that I'll be available during certain hours. But I found it's also a great tool for students to ask questions as they work on a poster assignment or for them to communicate with each other. So I've had students who late at night might drop a question in this Harmonized chat instead of in that general questions area. And it's a little bit less formal than an email and perhaps a little bit easier to ask something without having the formality of trying to type out an email at 2 in the morning while you're working on a paper, to just ask, what was that page count again? And I can answer it here in Harmonize as soon as I log back into Canvas.
So while you're getting ready to go into peer reviews, I just want to ask about chat real quick. Um, the students are sending you chat messages, but have you heard from your students that they're chatting with one another just as much, or?
I know that my students are chatting with one another. I'm not sure if they're using Harmonize, but I hope they are.
Okay.
They've told me that they have chats going on, but they haven't said we're using the Harmonize app to do it,
Hmm.
but I'm assuming they are.
Awesome. Okay. And just to clarify for anybody who's looking at this and hasn't seen Harmonize Chat yet, it is a one-on-one chat tool that can be created. Chat can be sent from an instructor to students, but students can also send directly to each other, and they can send group chats if they want to. And so a small group can collaborate that way.
Hey,
But
Michael,
yep.
a question just came up in chat and I wanted you to see it. Where is the
Oh,
chat function situated in the classroom?
Oh, okay. So when you're in Harmonize, yeah, if you could just hover here for a second, you'll notice down there on those cards that the students' names have been blocked out, but on the third card it says R Bruno right there. If a user were to click on the name of the poster, they'll see a button to send a chat directly to that person. At the same time, up at the top where it says General Course Questions, and there's that light bulb icon as well as the bell. The first icon, yeah, the first icon over there is two speech bubbles overlapping. You can click on that and it will open the chat feature in a new window. And then if you use Canvas, you can also have a link to Harmonize Chat from the course navigation bar. So there's actually 3 or 4 ways to launch a chat in Harmonize with a student. And perhaps maybe, Bruno, your most common use is when you're in SpeedGrader in Canvas and you're grading student work. You can also click on a student's name and be able to send them a one-on-one chat message rather than putting it in the discussion where everybody can see it. Because whether you're teaching first grade or medical school, you always want to praise in public and critique in private. And so that Harmonized Chat is a great way to send a nudge or just a suggestion like that one-on-one.
It is, and it's also a great way for students to know that I'm available. If they see that I'm active right now on Harmonize, they can say, okay, I can reach out directly at this time and get a response.
And that's how you let them know that office hours are up and running. You say like you'll be available from 4 to 5 p.m. and your green dot is up there in Harmonize and they just jump in and chat with you, correct?
Yeah, I've done that numerous times with Harmonize Chat, in addition to my Zoom office hours.
Awesome.
Okay, now
one more chat question came in. I just figured since we're on it, do you want me to jump in? Is this chat function similar to a product market where the chat can continue to remain and wait until the end, until the student pops in to see it for the faculty? And then so when folks, so folks can see when faculty are indeed on. So I think you just answered that. And is this chat function available on Blackboard?
Yes, yes, and yes. Available in Blackboard. If Bruno and I were to chat right now, and you're not online, then what you get is a little notification in Harmonize that tells you missed a chat, and so you'll be able to then go find it. And we just introduced a new tool to Harmonize that will allow you to turn on in-browser notifications. So even if you weren't in Canvas or in Harmonize and a chat message came in, you would be notified directly in Chrome or whichever browser you're using if you turn that on. So just like any other chat on your phone, if you don't see the message till you pick up your phone, it'll be there waiting for you. All right.
Great. Sorry about all those questions. It just came in right then.
Yes.
And there's a couple more, but I know we want to keep going on the presentation. We can filter those in.
Got it. All right. Thank you.
Figuring out how to run online peer review has been a difficult experience for me in the virtual first-year writing classroom. This is the second time I've used Harmonize, and while I'm working to figure out the logistics still, I believe that Harmonize is the best method I've found for online peer review. And I have here an example of a peer pod hub that I've created for peer review groups to discuss their work and their essays, and highlighting that I'm doing this often with Canvas groups if you're a Canvas user. But it's not the only way to do it. You can also just have people tag each other in their Harmonized post, and that way everyone would be able to see what the other groups are working on. Sorry, I went too far ahead. So for these online peer reviews with Harmonize, as with any form of peer review, the students share their work. But on Harmonize, the feedback is easy to find and navigate, with each student having their own topic and thread. So all of these students have posted their essays here, and they're able to share, let's say, a link where someone can edit the essay and a question in that same post about their essay. And then they'll receive comments on their own post that they can go back and review. I've used other peer review tools that were from other services, even directly on LMS, and often it leads to confusion. Where do I find the feedback again? How do I fill out that online rubric? And here, you're just able to click on that post that you created, look at the inline comments on the link you provided, and see your feedback in the form of those comments. I found it's much easier for students to navigate than some of the direct LMS options. But in addition to posting their work, I've created what I like to call peer pods, and each of those have their own Canvas group in my course usually. I'm trying out this semester having them all being able to see what everyone is doing, but I'm not sure if I'll stick with that or if I'll go back to the peer pods. But in these Harmonize peer pods, in addition to their shared work from the last slide, the groups can schedule meetings, discuss elements of the assignment, even plan their revision strategies in this more private manner because of the Canvas group. It'll be set to where only people in their group can see those discussions, and they can create meetings on Zoom in those. They can share questions about citations. They can share events like this one about dogs in the virtual library, or they can post like, here's what I'm working on with my revision strategies we learned in class. What are you going to try this time? So it's a great way to make peer review sort of extend beyond I'm just giving feedback on this 5-page essay, and instead into a real form of collaboration. And I often like to stress in my classes that writing is a collaborative process. And I feel like Harmonize is one of the best ways I've been able to add that collaborative element back into the virtual classroom.
Awesome. Well, we have a tremendous amount. Speaking of engagement, we have a lot of engagement in this group right now. You've got people firing off questions, and I want to make sure that we get to all of them. So before I start running through them, you might want to get a drink of water here. Anybody who has any other questions, put them in the Q&A forum right now. We'll try to get them in. The first one you actually already mentioned about peer reviews and activities and Harmonize that came from Thomas, and we talked about that earlier. But another question came in about the groups. You mentioned that you were using Canvas groups. How does that interact and Harmonize? Like, what was the benefit of that?
Yeah, I think the benefit of using Canvas groups and Harmonize was that I could take those conversations and give them a more focused sort of small group feel. So with the Canvas group element, it went from being perhaps I have the ability to see 54, so I should look at 54. And we all know that some of our students will say, I'm going to have to look at everything to figure out where I'm going with this, to having that dedicated group of 3 or 4, where you're only really focused on the materials that that group is submitting during the peer review process, and that you are committed to helping that group, to sharing ideas with that group. And I feel like that form of small group engagement, especially online, is really working to offer students a sense of community. I've seen in recent observations that students are motivated to engage with this smaller group of peers on a consistent basis. They feel like, okay, I have this group of 4 people that's counting on me. That's much different than putting a post in a group of 54. And I'm hoping to experiment more with this moving forward outside of just peer review, and having these dedicated sort of peer pods throughout the semester to give people that sense of community. Even once we return face to face, I think having those like groups of 3 or 4 that you have some sort of commitment with, some sort of engagement with across the semester can do nothing but really make students more committed to the course.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I didn't think about that. When a freshman walks into school, not only are they overwhelmed by this new environment, but now they're in a classroom with 54 people, or online looking at 54. That's just too much. Nice strategy. And I love the name, Peer Pods. That's fantastic. Here's a little different question. This one comes from Sean. How is Harmonize functionality different from, say, what can be done in your typical discussion forum like in Canvas? What are the big differences?
I think the big difference for me, and I had this before I ever used Harmonize, I was meeting with a student during office hours one night, and I was thinking about how much the Canvas discussion forum mirrored the type of message boards that I had been on in the internet in the 90s, early 2000s, and how this was something that that student had no frame of reference for. No frame of reference for the type of internet message boards that I was seeing in my head when I looked at Canvas discussions. So I tried to explain it to them. I tried to tell them like it's mirroring something that we did that was really fun in the late 90s to talk about music or movies, and it just wasn't clicking. But with Harmonize, when they see these cards, when they see the ability to directly embed a quick video, a short video, it's something that they're familiar with. It's something that even if they're able to do the same thing on Canvas discussions, they're able to do it here in a setting that they are accustomed to, and it really feels organic to them. I feel like there's much less of a this feels like an assignment. This feels like something
Mm.
that is typing into a vacuum, and more something that feels communicative and organic to their established sort of routines for communication.
Yeah, so they get that same like dopamine rush that they normally would from Facebook when you get a comment or response or a like. Speaking of this, ability to communicate with media, did you notice that students are more likely to share videos and images in Harmonize than they would in Canvas?
I think they're definitely more likely, and I think that part of that might be because I push for it sometimes.
Oh,
But
okay.
it's really allowed for some great assignments. One that I didn't share here that I almost did is where I have them make a um, visual representation of their writing process at the start and the
Ooh.
end of the semester. So they have to find a way to first visualize that and then share it to Harmonize. And I've had people who would make a video representation that they've uploaded. I've had people who do charts, graphs, comics, and all of that is able to be posted in that same harmonized thread.
Awesome. Okay. Shift gears again with another question. This one from Thomas. Have you used any techniques for encouraging participation in ungraded forums and Q&A discussions? What advice do you have on that?
So I am going to be 100% honest here, and that's something I think a lot of us are struggling with right now. But I don't
Yeah.
think that has as much to do with the technology as it might have to do with the fact that both as instructors and our students, we're just sort of running on empty at times during this year, 2020, 2021. And I think that that's what I'm telling myself often in terms of engagement on those ungraded areas. But I am getting some. And I think that one of the great ways to encourage that is to, in my Canvas modules, I put links to those ungraded discussions. And I'm like, check out the discussion that we've been having this week on, and then whatever's been going on in that area. And it gets new eyes on it, it gets new insights, and it keeps those conversations rolling a bit throughout the semester. That's been my technique, is just making sure that students have consistent reminders and access to those areas. It also helps, I think, that I've been putting my course videos in those areas. So if a student misses the course for the day and they go to check out the video, then they can see, oh, there's some new post in the course lounge, or there's some new post in the general questions, and they might check those out as well. So I think that's been one of the benefits of putting my course videos there, in addition to being able to answer questions in thread, is that it brings a new group to some of those other ungraded areas.
That's really that's a good point. And I would imagine that as the semester or term or the academic year unfolds, you might find that once you've started herding students towards this module or this tool that has these learning resources, then they'll start to come to it more and more. So you might see like more engagement as the year goes on.
Yeah, I've noticed that, especially with the course videos, and
Mhm.
I've noticed a little bit of, I don't know about many other schools, but like we didn't have a spring break. So without that
Mm.
spring break, I've noticed that we've hit a little bit of a wall sometimes in terms of that participation post when spring break would have been. But in that course video area, I think that's been my biggest success in the ungraded areas.
Um, I just want to make a point for anybody who's watching that isn't familiar with Harmonize. It is possible to go in and look at an activity report for every student and see exactly how many of their peers posts they've reviewed, and be able to see just how much activity is happening with their use of the tool. You got both a compliment from Sean and another question. Sean says, thoughtful, frank discussion, much appreciated. And then asks, when students are saying that, or they hear students don't do optional, and asks like, how engaged have yours been in ungraded discussion forums? I think you answered that, but here's the next question. Do you find that it helps to build community?
That's my goal, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure that I can say yet that it is the number one sort of metric for building community, but I think that anything we can do to build community during these times helps. And I definitely have heard from students that have said, I didn't think I would make a friend during a remote class, and I have.
Mm.
And that is, to me, is just as much a success as improving their writing at this point, because I think we're all at that place where we might want to make a new friend during these times, and to hear that these technologies have supported that, I think is really important.
Mhm. Okay, awesome answers. And one other question came in. I'm going to try to uh, paraphrase. I'm not 100% sure. It says, how does a lecturer make the platform like more inviting by allowing students to participate in a discussion? I don't know if you would agree with this, but I've always been of the philosophy that like good discussion questions spark good discussions. But what I found is that when the students are allowed to ask the questions, that's when you see a lot more activity. And then from that activity, you can discern that there's more engagement. Would you agree with that? Like, do you use that strategy not only with your like general course questions, but do you also use it with your writing materials? Like, I know that you're reading. I know you're sharing like a reading assignment with the whole class. Do you allow them to write the questions about the readings?
So in my shared notes assignment, that's one of the things that I did frequently this semester. So
Mm.
part of their notes would be, these are the questions I have after reading this. They would have those questions, and then they would invite the other students to answer them. But I'm really interested in using that student facilitator function that Harmonize has added recently to make this more a part of my course in the future, where I would have like assigned facilitators come up with a question for the week, or based on like last week's readings, and then get them to sort of take control of those Harmonize elements for the week to make them take ownership and sort of encourage them to feel like they are in control of some of those conversations.
Well, it sounds like you're doing some really awesome things, not just with Harmonize, but just with teaching in general, especially online. You're building community. You're setting the students up for success by giving them an opportunity to take ownership. And you're providing the resources that they need to be self-reliant. What an excellent way to structure a freshman course for first year students. I wish I had you for my English 101 class. I don't even remember who my English 101 instructor was, but you're doing great work. So thank you for the presentation and for sharing everything. Thank you for answering everybody's questions. And thank you for doing all that you do. One last question came up that I'm going to answer from Sam. Asked, how do I access these recordings? So let's jump to one more slide, and I will let you know that on our Harmonize website, you're going to see at harmonize.42lines.net/webinars, all of our webinars are recorded and the links are posted there. They'll be in the archives. But we have two new webinars coming up here next week on April 20th. We're going to do a short 30-minute webinar about our new Q&A feature, something that we just talked about, like giving students the ability to create their own questions. But we're going to add some new tools to this feature that you don't see in your typical Harmonized discussion. You'll have the ability to add polls and upvote student answers, or even mark student answers and endorse them, and be able to search for threads. So a completely new format to a Harmonized discussion will be available coming out in May. And so we will do a webinar showing you all of those features next week on April 20th at 4:00 Eastern time. You can sign up for that at that link right there, harmonize.42lines.net/webinars. And then on the next week, on the 28th, for anybody who is new to Harmonize and just wants to see an overall product demo, that one will be a little bit longer, maybe 45 minutes long. And I'm going to go through all of the tools, all of the features, all the functionality, the buttonology, everything you need to know about how Harmonize works. And that will cover all the LMSs as well. So hopefully you will join us for one of those. I thank you for everybody for attending today. And another thank you for our Bruno for presenting. Everybody, a round of applause, finger snaps, hand waves, whatever we do at the end of a Zoom meeting. Thank you so much for everything. I look forward to working with all of you in the Harmonize learning community. Thanks a lot.